Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching Eagle News International. Joining me is Miss CJ Hero. Hello, CJ.
Hello, Alma, and good evening to everyone watching the program. Here are tonight's headlines.
Jordan says it has foiled a plot to destabilize the kingdom involving Prince Hamza bin Hussein, a half-brother of King Abdullah II, and arrested at least 16 suspects.
Israel's legal and political dramas converge with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu due in court for his corruption trial and the president to launch talks to help form a government.
The death toll from a ferry disaster in Bangladesh jumped to 26 after rescuers pulled the vessel out of the water and found more bodies inside, according to officials.
And the General Auditor of the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, Brother Glicerio B. Santos Jr., passed away on Saturday, April 3, due to pneumonia. He was 79 and would have turned 80 on June 12 this year.
First in our headline, Jordan's Prince Hamza, accused of a wicked plot against his elder half-brother, King Abdullah II, has struck a defiant tone, insisting he will not obey orders restricting his movement. The government has accused Hamza of involvement in a seditious conspiracy to destabilize the kingdom's security, placed him under house arrest, and detained at least 16 more people. But 41-year-old Hamza, who says he has been ordered to stay inside his Amman Palace, vowed he would defy orders limiting his movement and communications in an audio recording posted on Twitter late on Sunday. He said, quote, "I don't want to make moves and escalate now, but of course, I'm not going to obey when they say you can't go out, you can't tweet, you can't communicate with people, you're only allowed to see your family," unquote. Hamza, a former crown prince who was stripped of that title by Abdullah in 2004, has emerged as a vocal critic of the monarchy, accusing Jordan's leadership of corruption, nepotism, and authoritarian rule. In a video he sent to the BBC on Saturday, he bemoaned incompetence that has been prevalent in governing the structure for the last 15 to 20 years and has been getting worse, he said. And he charged that no one is able to speak or express opinion on anything without being bullied, arrested, harassed, and threatened. Hamza denied being involved in any nefarious plot, but said he had been placed under house arrest with his phone and internet cut by Jordan's military chief, General Youssef Huneti.
Meanwhile, Israel's legal and political dramas converged Monday with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in court for his corruption trial as the president launched talks on forming a government. Netanyahu, ordered to appear in person for opening arguments, sat in the Jerusalem District Court wearing a black mask as the prosecution accused him of misusing his office to advance his political interests. Netanyahu denies wrongdoing in the case in which he has been charged with accepting improper gifts and seeking to trade regulatory favors with media moguls in exchange for positive coverage. Lead prosecutor Liat Ben-Ari told judges that Netanyahu was involved in a serious case of government corruption. He made illegitimate use of the great governmental power entrusted to him in his dealings with media executives in order to advance his personal affairs, including when he faced his desire to be re-elected, she said. As Ben-Ari laid out the criminal case against Israel's longest-serving leader, across the city, President Reuven Rivlin began meetings that could determine Netanyahu's political fate. Rivlin on Monday began 2 days of consultations with party officials to determine who has a plausible path towards a 61-seat majority in a parliament bitterly divided between those who back Netanyahu and those committed to ending his 12-year tenure. Before his first meeting with Netanyahu's envoys from Likud, Rivlin said he would seek to nominate a candidate who has the best chance of forming a government that will have the confidence of the new Knesset. Customarily, Rivlin gives the leader with most recommendations from individual lawmakers a 28-day window to form a government. That can be extended by 14 days at the president's discretion. Rivlin confirmed that Likud had endorsed Netanyahu as expected.
To other news now, the presence of Chinese vessels at a disputed reef off the Philippines could ignite unwanted hostilities, according to a top aide to President Duterte, warning this on Monday and intensifying a diplomatic spat over the ships. More than 200 Chinese boats were first spotted on March 7 at Whitsun Reef, around 320 kilometers west of Palawan Island in the contested South China Sea. Most of them have since scattered across the Spratly Islands, but last week dozens of the Chinese-flagged vessels were still anchored at the boomerang-shaped reef, according to Philippine military patrols. And for weeks, Manila has called on Beijing to withdraw the maritime militia vessels, saying their incursion into the Philippines' exclusive economic zone is unlawful. But China, which claims almost the entirety of the resource-rich sea, has refused, insisting their fishing boats sheltering from bad weather and are allowed to be there. President Duterte, who has fostered warmer ties with his superpower neighbors since taking office in 2016, has expressed concern to the Chinese ambassador over the ships. And according to his spokesman, until Monday, he had left the talking in public to his defense and foreign ministers, but in the strongest remarks yet from his office, the president's top legal counsel, Salvador Panelo, warned China's present territorial incursions is producing an unwelcome stain in their bond and may trigger unwanted hostilities that both countries would rather not pursue. He said the matter of territorial dispute has to be resolved in the diplomatic negotiating table or by the dictates of international law, according to Mr. Panelo in a statement. It comes a day after outspoken Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana also accused Beijing of planning to occupy more features in the waters where Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei also have rival claims.
In other news, an Australian couple was released from house arrest in Myanmar and allowed to leave the country as protests against the military junta continued today. Myanmar has been in turmoil since since the February 1 coup that ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi and derailed the country's experiment with democracy. Business consultants Matthew O'Kane and Krista Avery, a dual Canadian-Australian citizen, tried to leave the country on a relief flight in late March, but were barred from departing and placed under house arrest. The couple said they were incredibly sad to leave Myanmar, which was their home for 8 years, and hope the country stabilizes soon. A spokesperson for Canberra's Foreign Affairs Department said Australian diplomats had provided support for their departure from Yangon on April 4. The couple ran a bespoke consultancy business in Yangon. A third Australian economist, Sean Turnell, was arrested a week after the putsch and remains in custody. The university professor and advisor to Suu Kyi was the first foreign national arrested following the coup. He has been charged with a violation of state secret laws, along with Suu Kyi late last month.
Meanwhile, back to the pandemic situation around the world. In Japan, the country has imposed new antivirus measures on Osaka because of an uptick on infections there. Dennis Lu joins us live. Hello, Dennis.
Hello, Alma. Good evening. Stronger measures to prevent the spread of this coronavirus officially started Monday in Osaka, Hyogo, and Miyagi prefectures. This is to curb a sharp resurgence of cases in the three areas. The steps include fines for restaurants that ignore orders to shorten operating hours and requirements for customers to wear masks and patronizing such establishments. Restaurants and bars in the 6 cities will be asked to close by 8 p.m. and could be slapped with a fine of up to 200,000 yen for non-compliance. They will also be asked to remove customers who refuse to cooperate and to install acrylic sheets to prevent droplets infections. Stores that comply with the request will be paid between 40,000 yen to 200,000 yen per day, depending on their past sales. Authorities will increase patrols to check that establishments are adequately carrying out prevention measures. Attendance in large events such as concerts and sports games will also be capped at 5,000, with the public asked to refrain from non-essential outings. This will be effective for 1 month until May 5th. The start of the measures comes as new infections in Osaka continue to eclipse those of Tokyo, with the prefecture on Sunday confirming 593 new coronavirus cases after reporting a single-day record of 666 cases the previous day. Miyagi Prefecture has also reached stage 4, the worst level on the government's 4-point scale for the volume of weekly infection cases per 100,000 people by last Thursday, while Hyogo is at stage 3, according to the health ministry. Meanwhile, Japan's Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide says the rise in coronavirus cases has not yet reached the level of a nationwide 4th wave, but extra vigilance is required. Suga made the comment in response to an opposition lawmaker in an upper house audit committee session on Monday. He said the current situation has yet to reach a major nationwide surge that can be called a 4th wave. Meanwhile, the head of the government's advisory panel on the coronavirus response, Omi Shigeru, said it has become harder to get people's cooperation for changing behaviors to contain the virus. He said there has been a notable increase in people traffic. Omi also noted that another difficulty is a gradual increase in cases of virus variants, including in Tokyo. He said it is time to seriously consider what effective countermeasures can be taken. Alma?
All right. Thank you very much for your update. Looking forward to more updates coming out of Japan. Thank you very much, Dennis, and stay safe.
Thank you, Alma. Stay safe too. Reporting live from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Lu. We live in interesting times.
In other news, India's worst-hit state ramped up its coronavirus restrictions as nationwide the daily infections exceeded 100,000 for the first time on Monday. Watch this.
Worsening. It is worsening. Now more and more contacts they are coming in. So more positive cases we'll find in coming days. It will be more number of cases. People are not following the whatever guidelines government has been giving, health guidelines. They are not following it.
People are not like this one. They are not wearing masks, and there are a lot of weddings. Marketplaces are open, and elections are happening in the country. So all this is leading to the rise in pandemic, and another 2-3 months is going to be very bad for India. We see in a family there are 5-6 getting positive. Like before, we never had this scenario, but nowadays it is not the single person in the family; the entire family is getting positive.
The United States is the only nation that has regularly registered so many cases in one day. Brazil recorded triple digits once in March. In India, hopes at the start of the year that the outbreak may be subsiding in the vast nation of 1.3 billion people have been dashed in recent weeks as a fresh wave pushed the national total to 12.5 million infections and 160 65,000 deaths. Maharashtra, the worst-hit state and home to India's financial and entertainment capital Mumbai, recorded nearly 60,000 cases in the last 24 hours. Struggling state authorities on Sunday tightened the evening curfew to allow only people involved in essential services out of their homes from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. The region of 110 million people will also see weekend lockdowns with gatherings of over 4 people banned and places of worship and restaurants shut.
Meanwhile, Canada on Saturday crossed the threshold of 1 million coronavirus cases as the country faces a third wave of infections, forcing several provinces to tighten restrictions in recent days. With 2,000 new cases of COVID-19 announced in British Columbia on Saturday evening, Canada topped 1 million cases since the start of the pandemic, according to figures reported by Canadian broadcasters. Just over 23,000 people have died. Canada is grappling with a third wave of cases amid the rapid spread of variants, which are more contagious. The two most populous provinces, Ontario and Quebec, headed into the Catholic Easter weekend tightening public health measures. Ontario, home to more than a third of Canada's cases, stepped up restrictions for at least 4 weeks. Non-essential businesses are held to 25% capacity, while others can accommodate 50% capacity. Sports venues and hair salons are closed, though schools remain open and residents have not been ordered to stay home. The second worst-hit province, Quebec, strengthened restrictions in several regions while maintaining a nighttime curfew imposed in early January that's unprecedented in Canada. Meanwhile, vaccinations have been slow to get off the ground. An inoculation program launched in December has been plagued by delays in deliveries of Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna doses from Europe. In addition, new age restrictions were imposed on the AstraZeneca jab over safety concerns. To date, 14.6% of the population has received at least one vaccine dose, according to the COVID-19 Tracker Canada website.
When you find that to someone, you just kind of want to stick with them.
World Health Organization Philippine Representative Dr. Rabindra Abeyasinghe said that the recent increase in the number of COVID cases in the Philippines is not due to incompetence. Rather, this phenomenon is related to the proliferation of new variants of concern, non-strict adherence to minimum public health standards, and optimism over the arrival and rollout of vaccines. Watch this.
Important question you are asking. We are seeing week-on-week increase in the number of cases worldwide, not just here in the Philippines. In nearly all of WHO's 6 regions, we are seeing an increase of cases week by week over the last 4 weeks. And there are 3 factors which are attributed to contributing to this increase. The first one is the possible circulation or co-circulation of multiple new variants, which are attributed to have increased transmissibility and in some cases potential for increased severity of disease. These are the so-called variants of concern. The second issue that is attributed to this increase is a gradual reduction in the compliance of the minimum public health standards that were implemented across the world in every country due to the long time frame since the start of the pandemic in January 2020, when many people are showing signs of fatigue with complying with these restrictive practices, which have been proven to be effective in reducing the transmission. And finally, the third attributary factor is the optimism of the arrival and gradual rollout of vaccines, which have led to the reduction of the compliance with the minimum public health standards on the part of citizens, but also to optimism on the part of local governments and authorities where they have relaxed the implementation and monitoring of the minimum public health standards.
Staying in the Philippines, instead of extending the enhanced community quarantine or ECQ in Metro Manila and 4 nearby provinces beyond April 11, Malacanang on Monday said the government might downgrade it to modified ECQ or MECQ to curb the spread of the virus. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made this statement after announcing last Saturday that the ECQ placed over National Capital Region, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal has been extended until April 11. Secretary Roque said the shift to a more relaxed quarantine status will depend on whether the government's prevent, detect, isolate, treat, reintegrate, or PDITR strategies have shown significant improvements in lowering the daily infections. He also noted that a 2-week ECQ followed by a week-long MECQ is expected to slash daily infections by around 4,000 a day.
Meanwhile, the death toll from a ferry disaster in Bangladesh jumped to 26 on Monday after rescuers pulled the vessel out of the water and found more bodies inside, according to officials. The sunken ferry was extracted from the heavily polluted Shitalaksha River in the central district of Narayanganj as hundreds of onlookers and relatives of the missing watched from the shore. The 1.5-story Sabit Al-Hassan sank after it collided with a bigger cargo vessel on Sunday. The vessel had departed less than an hour earlier from Narayanganj, 20 kilometers from Dhaka, according to officials. A local police inspector said the ferry was packed with passengers after the government confirmed it would impose a 7-day lockdown across the country to combat the recent rise in coronavirus cases. Bilya said the ship was carrying at least 46 people when it left. Local police chief Deepak Saha said rescue efforts were hampered for hours by a powerful storm that hit after the accident. Under the lockdown, all domestic travel services, including buses, ferries, trains, and flights, will be suspended from Monday.
Meanwhile, the novel coronavirus has killed at least 2,854,154 since the outbreak emerged in China in December of 2019. That is according to a Johns Hopkins tally and from official sources. Now, on Sunday, 6,657 new deaths and 519,076 new cases were recorded worldwide. The United States is the worst affected country with 555,001 deaths from 30,706,128 cases. After the U.S., the hardest hit countries are Brazil with 331,433 deaths from 12,984,956 cases. Mexico with 204,147 deaths from 2,250,458 cases. India with 165,101 deaths from 12,589,067 cases. And the United Kingdom with 126,836 deaths from 4,359,388 cases. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by Canriv Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel, hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation, and modernization. For more info, please contact Ami Kanke. at 0915-263-7198 or 0998-900-3224.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. Equities mostly rose in Asia on Monday following a forecast-busting U.S. jobs report and as investors kept tabs on the progress of Joe Biden's latest economy-boosting spending package. With holidays keeping business limited, trading was light, but the strong employment reading on Friday provided healthy support while eyes turned to the upcoming earnings season. The U.S. Labor Department said the world's top economy created more than 900,000 jobs in March, far more than expected, and reinforcing the view that it is well on the recovery track after last year's virus-induced collapse. Meanwhile, upward revisions to figures in January and February meant 156 more jobs than previously flagged were created. Tokyo, Seoul, Singapore, and Manila were all in positive territory, though Jakarta and Bangkok fell. And Mumbai sank more than 2% as India continues to struggle with surging virus infections, which have forced the government to impose limited lockdowns in Maharashtra state.
Towering cranes worked overtime, swinging huge containers of cargo vessels in the eastern Chinese port of Lianyungang, racing to keep ahead of a perfect storm unleashed by the pandemic, which has had a major impact on global shipping. Take a look.
我相信呢，这个情况呢，可能应该过段时间会缓解，但是按照预期来讲的话，可能还要到6月份之后，这时候按照我们的一个判断，可能还会，物流成本的增加也好，包括香源紧缺也好，还会有持续一段时间啊。
Britain on Monday will unveil plans to restart international travel as it cautiously exits a coronavirus lockdown, but India was forced to further tighten curbs to fight a huge spike in infections. Even as vaccinations gather pace, the coronavirus is spreading rapidly in many parts of the world, forcing a return of lockdowns from Canada and Peru to Bangladesh and Italy. But after inoculating more than 31 million people with their first dose, Britain is set to ease travel restrictions that include a ban on international trips, except for a handful of permitted reasons. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said, "We are doing everything we can to enable the reopening of our country as safely as possible." Britain has set a tentative date of May 17 for the resumption, with destinations ranked green, amber, or red based on the virus threat. People heading to low-risk green countries will simply take a virus test before and after they travel, but those going to amber or red destinations will have to self-isolate or quarantine afterwards. But the government has said it is too early to say which countries will be tagged green.
In other business news, French energy giant Total will not halt gas production in Kuwait, Myanmar, according to its chief on Sunday, despite growing calls for foreign companies to sever ties with the junta as it escalates a brutal crackdown on dissent. Chief Executive Patrick Puyan said Total had a duty to stay the course because gas it produces supplies electricity to millions in Yangon as well as Western Thailand. Can a company like Total decide to cut off the electricity supply to millions of people and in so doing disrupt the operation of hospitals, businesses? He said in an interview with the Journal de Dimanche. Now, Puyan said he was outraged by the repression in Myanmar but would refuse to act to the detriment of our local employees and the Burmese population who are already suffering so much. Demonstrations against the coup, supported by a widespread strike by civil servants, have crippled Myanmar's economy, leaving gas exports as one of junta's main sources of revenue. The military-controlled Myanmar oil and gas enterprise has partnerships with Total and U.S. rival Chevron and generates annual revenues of around $1 billion from the sale of natural gas. Total paid around $230 million to the Myanmar authorities in 2019 and $176 million in 2020 in the form of taxes and production rights, according to the company's own financial statements.
Meanwhile, Greece on Monday relaxed a nationwide lockdown by opening most of retail shops despite a high level of COVID-19 infections and fatalities. By allowing people to decompress outside their homes as the weather improves, the government hopes to also stem damage to the economy that has taken a major revenue blow because of reduced tourism. Customers must pre-book appointments before visiting shops, and up to 20 people will be allowed inside at a time. Critics have noted the paradox of the lockdown being relaxed while new cases of the virus are reported at a rate of over 3,000 daily. That is around 1,000 more than when the restrictions were announced in November, with the daily number of deaths now more than double. Monday's reopening does not affect department stores and malls, whose operation will be re-evaluated later in April. Restrictions on retail also remain in place in areas around Thessaloniki and Patras, Greece's largest cities after Athens, because of spiking infections. Greece has so far registered more than 275,000 coronavirus cases and over 8,300 deaths since the start of the pandemic, including nearly 150 over the weekend. Some 750 people are in intensive care. A firm backer of European vaccine passports, Greece is hoping to kickstart its tourism season from mid-May onwards to claw back some badly needed revenue. Greece expects to spend some 11.6 billion euros this year to mitigate the impact of the coronavirus on its economy, on top of 24 billion euros spent in 2020. The Greek budget forecasts economic growth of 4.8%, scaled back from an earlier 7.5% estimate owing to lockdown.
In the business of show business, Godzilla vs. Kong, a throwback monster movie in which a lizard with atomic breath battles a computer-generated ape on top of an aircraft carrier, took in an estimated $48.5 million at 3.064 North American cinemas between Wednesday and Sunday. It was the largest turnout by far for a movie since the pandemic began. That is according to the New York Times. Take a look. For anyone who may have doubted the pent-up demand for movie-going, this performance is yet another sign of just how resilient the theatrical industry can be, according to Sean Robbins, the chief analyst at the boxoffice.com. Over the weekend, only 55% of theaters were open in North America compared to the total opening in 2019, according to data from ComScore. The majority of those cinemas are operating at around 50% capacity. David A. Gross, who runs the movie consulting firm Franchise Entertainment Research, called the opening weekend ticket sales strong, given the still difficult conditions.
And I think that in some way, Kong did the same.
Chinese tech giants are expanding in Singapore as they face a crackdown at home and growing pressure in other key markets, but they may struggle to find talent in the city-state. Messaging and gaming behemoth Tencent is opening a hub, and TikTok owner ByteDance is on a hiring spree after establishing a regional headquarters, while e-commerce giant Alibaba is investing in property and recruiting. The tech firms are shifting their focus to booming Southeast Asian markets as authorities tighten the screws at home amid concerns about the platform's growing power. Regulators have launched a blitz on the sector, hitting several firms with heavy fines and threatening to slice up massive companies whose reach now extends deep into the daily lives of ordinary Chinese. Meanwhile, festering tensions between Washington and Beijing after an assault on Chinese tech titans during Donald Trump's presidency make the United States an unattractive prospect, and problems abound elsewhere. The influx of Chinese cash will be welcome in Singapore, whose economy has been hammered by the coronavirus and which is seeking to build itself up as a tech center.
Meanwhile, LG Electronics, South Korea's second-largest appliance firm after Samsung, is closing down its mobile phone business, according to the company on Monday, after the division lost billions in recent years. The firm was once considered a pioneer of the Android operating system, collaborating with Google on the Nexus series in the early 2010s. But it has long struggled to increase sales, entering the market late and facing tough competition from emerging cheaper Chinese rivals such as Huawei. It was regularly listed among the world's top 10 smartphone manufacturers, but according to tracker Counterpoint, the last time it recorded a global market share of 3% or more was in the second quarter of 2018. The unit has recorded losses for 23 consecutive quarters since 2015, with a cumulative deficit reaching about 5 trillion won or $4.4 billion by the end of last year. The division has failed to produce results amid intensifying price competition among major competitors in the entry-level mobile phone market, according to the company in a statement. The decision will enable the firm to focus resources in growth areas such as electric vehicle components, robotics, and smartphones. LG reportedly held talks with Vietnam's Vingroup over a potential sale, but it broke down over price differences, according to local reports.
Eagle News will be right back with more updates. Please don't go away.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced. Not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas. A one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Matanang Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science, and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International
On
delivers the
tonight's
latest
headlines.
global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to claims our help outdoor attack.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back to the news. Tropical cyclone Seraja pounded Indonesia and East Timor Monday after torrential rains triggered floods and landslides that have killed at least 91 people and left dozens missing. Packing heavy winds and rains, the storm heaped more misery on the Southeast Asian nations after Sunday's disaster turned small communities into wastelands of mud and uprooted trees and forced thousands of people into shelters. Indonesia's disaster agency said downpours are expected over the next day as the storm triggers offshore waves as high as 6 meters or 20 feet. The cyclone, which was picking up strength as it moved toward the west coast of Australia, hampered efforts to reach trapped survivors. Indonesia's disaster agency said at least 70 people have been killed, with another 70 missing. In East Timor, at least 21 people have been killed, according to an official in the tiny half-island nation of 1.3 million that lies between Indonesia and Australia. Many of the deaths were in Timor's inundated capital, Dili, where the front of the presidential palace was transformed into a mud pit. Indonesian President Joko Widodo expressed deepest condolences over the devastation in the southeast end of the archipelago. Across the region, residents have flocked to temporary shelters or taken refuge in what was left of their homes.
Meanwhile, emergency crews in Central Florida are working to prevent an environmental catastrophe at a leaking reservoir that risks sending millions of gallons of contaminated wastewater toward nearby homes and into the Tampa Bay. Take a look.
The Los Angeles Clippers didn't have to lean heavily on their superstar duo against the defending NBA champions on Sunday, getting help from their supporting cast in a 104-86 rout of the shorthanded Los Angeles Lakers. The Clippers got a game-high 22 points from Marcus Morris, while All-Stars Kawhi Leonard and Paul George finished with 19 and 16 points, respectively, at Staples Center Arena. Luke Kennard tallied 15 points off the bench, and guard Rajon Rondo made his Clippers debut, playing 13 minutes in the win, which comes in the middle of a 9-game homestand. Kennard and Terrence Mann have stepped in nicely to fill the void left by an injury to starting guard Patrick Beverley. Mann finished with 7 points.
And finally, in our news, the General Auditor of the Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ, Brother Glicerio B. Santos Jr., passed away on Saturday, April 3, due to pneumonia. He was 79 and would have turned 80 on June 12 this year. Take a look.
Sapagkat napakahirap na ng daigdig, naganap ng kahirapan, ay sinikap niya na madala ang lingap sa mamayan o Aid for Humanity sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo. Unang-una ay ngayon ay panahon ng kahirapan. Hindi natin maipatatwayan. Ang buong mundo ay naghihirap, kasama na ang ating bansa. Ang nagiging biktima ng paghihirap na ito ay mga kapatid at hindi kapatid. Kaya inisip ng kapatid Eduardo Manalo na ang maging layunin ng ganitong malalaking proyekto ay mabigyan sila ng disenteng pamumuhay, mabigyan sila ng pabahay at ng hanap buhay. Sapagkat biktima sila ng mga kalamidad. At hindi lamang yan, kundi yung lahat ng mga kapatid na walang matibay na hanap buhay ay inanyayahan ni Ka Eduardo Manalo na sumama na sa malaking proyektong ito. Gustong-gusto ni Ka Eduardo Manalo na labanan ang paghihirap. Fight poverty, na yan naman ang layunin ng buong mundo. Ang Iglesia ni Cristo sa ngayon ay nakapaglingap na sa maraming bansa. Dati-dati ay sa Pilipinas lamang nakakonsentrate ang lingap sa mamamayan. Subalit ngayon sa panahon ng kapatid Eduardo Manalo, sapagkat napakahirap na ng daigdig at naganap na ang kahirapan, ay sinikap niya na madala ang lingap sa mamayan o Aid for Humanity sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo.
June Santos or Ka June Santos. Brother June Santos or Ka June Santos, as he is more often called, was a very strong helper of the church administration in working on programs for the welfare of both members and non-members of the church. Recently, his 50th year of dedicated service as a minister was marked and commemorated at the INC Central Office. Upon the directive of INC Executive Minister Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, Brother June Santos led projects under the Unlad Kabuhayan International, such as eco-farming, dried fish, manufacturing, and garments and housing projects in the Philippines and in other parts of the world, such as in the United States, South Africa, and Latin American countries. These programs, launched to fight poverty, also led to the launching of the Worldwide Walk for Typhoon Haiyan and the Worldwide Walk to Fight Poverty, which both resulted in world records for a charity walk recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records. These also led to the establishment of more livelihood programs and eco-farms to help various communities in the Philippines and abroad. Also, upon the directive of the INC Church Administration, Brother June Santos launched large-scale lingap sa mamamayan or aid to humanity projects in various parts of the world, as well as evangelical missions under the Kabayan Ko Kapatid Ko, My Countrymen, My Brethren program to help more people in need.
Brother June Santos was also instrumental in the construction of the Philippine Arena, the world's largest indoor arena, which the Iglesia ni Cristo had allowed the Philippine government to use to help in its efforts to fight COVID-19. He was also instrumental in the giving of donations by the Iglesia ni Cristo to various hospitals and local government units to fight the pandemic. During the pandemic, Brother June Santos also supported Eagle Broadcasting Corporation in coming up with new programs that sought to inspire hope and bring happiness to a wider audience. Such programs include entertainment shows like Happy Time, Kasaya-saya, Unlad Kaagapay sa Hanap Buhay, Tagisan ng Galing, Himig ng Lahi, Eats, Singing Time, Letters and Music, and Ang Daigdig Ko'y Ikaw, Ikaw Ay Akin, and improved news programs such as Pambansang Almusal, Balitalakayan, Agila Pilipinas, Mata ng Agila, and our program, Eagle News International. Aside from the upcoming movie under EBC Films, The Jukebox King, which is the life story of Victor Wood. He also supported the reformatting of Eagle FM 95.5, which now plays classic hits. Brother June Santos is survived by his wife, Dr. Annie P. Santos, PhD, and children Dr. Glicerio Sergi P. Santos III, Attorney Glicerio G.P. Santos IV, Gertrudis Jet P. Santos, and Gertrude's Drew P. Santos Matias.
Ang unlad kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
He will truly be missed, and the void that he left will never be filled.
Forgotten,
You know, we love him so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. Please join us again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back tomorrow. We live
in interesting times.